Greetings, Happy New Year, and welcome to the 2015 premiere episode of Picture Lock, where we focus on film. Since it's 2015, I figured what better to do than do a top 10 recap of the best films of 2014. And to do that, I brought one of my best friends on this show, Mr. Jason Fraley. Jason, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. I love being here. I was here on the very first show and been back a couple other times since then, and It's always a blast.
Always. Now, in the time since you last came on, you've had a little bit of a change in job title.
Yeah.
Want to talk about that? Congratulations.
Oh, yeah, thanks. So I used to be just our movie critic on Fridays only. The rest of the week, I wrote the morning news show, all the scripts for Mike and Joan in the morning. But I think as of first week of December, I took over as our full-time entertainment editor. So now it's 5 days a week. I'm on air and online running the entertainment page, and I have a piece on air with it every day. So it's not just movies. Now it's movies, theater, music, TV, everything.
Wow.
So I'm in heaven.
That's awesome, man. Hey.
As Fred Astaire told Ginger Rogers.
Congratulations once again, Jason. That's cool. I mean, what would you say has been like the coolest part so far in the transition? What might be the toughest challenge for somebody that's watching is like, what does an entertainment editor do?
Well, the coolest part is just the ability to finally own the beat and not have to turn down so many press releases of, there's a show at the Kennedy Center. Great, I'd love to do it, but, Gone Girl comes out Friday, so that's my piece. If I'm the movie critic, I had to do that the one day a week, and everything else, I had to pass to another reporter.
Right.
So that's the great part. The challenge is it's kind of a grass is always greener thing, It's recalibrating your brain to be in charge of this ever-evolving beast. You're in charge of this page, and it's constantly fielding everything and planning out your schedule. You need 30 stories a month or whatever it is, because you need a story for every day, a lead story. So It's just budgeting your time, scheduling, and you can't punch the clock like you do on the news desk. Write whatever the editor hands you and go home, turn your brain off, until that Friday's movie review. Now it's like every day you're in charge of a little baby here. So That's the challenge. But I mean, it's a great challenge. I love the gig, and I'm really grateful to Laurie Cantillo, our boss at TOP, and it's a great place to work.
Awesome. Well, without further ado, let's do what we do best. Let's geek out on film.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we're just gonna do this where we just hit up my number 10, your number 10, however we do it. We'll talk about each film, and we'll go down all the way to number 1. We're going straight through. We're beasting this thing.
All right, man.
All right, so go ahead.
Marshawn Lynch style. Beast mode.
Exactly.
All right.
I'll let you start first. What's your number 10 movie?
Number 10 was a tricky slot for me because this is like where all your honorable mentions like go do battle, and you're like, who's gonna make the 10 slot?
Right.
So I mean, some of the ones that I was toying with putting in there, I really loved Locke with Tom Hardy. Did you see that? I mean, it was a British film where he's just a one-man show behind the steering wheel of a car the whole movie on making phone calls.
Right.
Loved that. American Sniper. There was Force Majeure, the French movie that's probably going to win foreign language film, maybe about a family skiing trip that exposes survival instincts. It was great.
Right.
In terms of summer blockbusters, I really liked Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I thought it was a great War and Peace commentary. It kind of surprised me in that sense, for a sequel to a prequel reboot or whatever. But with number 10, I ended up picking Wild with Reese Witherspoon, actually.
Okay.
It was like my inspirational pick of the year. I like movies that are about one thing on the surface, but really are about something else. And Reese Witherspoon goes on this. Like, I think it's an 1,100-mile hike from the Mexican border all the way to Canada. So that's what it is on the surface. But, really it's about her purging her demons and getting out there and overcoming some grief from the past. We don't want to spoil anything for those who haven't seen it, but some family grief and, some of her own mistakes and getting over it. But I think I really dug the way it was shot. It's the director of Dallas Buyers Club. It was his follow-up to, McConaughey and Jared Leto won for that last year.
Right.
And I just really like the way, the title basically describes his directorial style. It was definitely wild. He was cutting in and out of it was kind of like acid flashbacks. It reminded me of like Easy Rider. She'd be hiking, and all of a sudden it would cut back to a flash of a flame and like a hallucinatory image of her mother, and they really spaced it out, and you had to kind of piece together what those flashbacks were saying about her past, and I just really loved the style of the filmmaker in that movie, so that edged in there for number 10.
Yeah. All right. Honestly, I have not seen Wild yet.
Okay.
I started it when we were watching all the different
All the
films and
screeners.
everything, and I think at that point I was just like, man, I can't do this.
Right.
It was like a tough subject, but I know many people have said it's an awesome film. My number 10, I'm going for an outlier as well, and I'm gonna go with Jeremy Saulnier's Blue Ruin.
Oh, okay.
Now, I don't know if you got a chance to see this, but this one was about a drifter who's played by Macon Blair, and he receives this news that someone gets out of prison, and so that brings him back to his hometown. And then from there, he turns into this really amateur assassin, and it's really cool to watch. To watch Macon Blair. Because he is just phenomenal in the role. Did you see the film?
I did not.
Okay, you got to check it out.
Right.
So he's phenomenal in the role, and it's like this dark comedy. And I guess maybe if you're a fan of Dexter,
Okay.
that type of thing,
Yeah.
it's kind of like that. But what I really appreciate about this film is that a Kickstarter campaign. They were able to make the film. I mean, and it just shows what you can do when you really go after it. I believe this is his feature film debut,
cool.
Saulnier. So it's really a cool film. You got to see it if you haven't. Like I said, it's funny, but at the same time, at the heart of it, it's all about family. And I can't.
Who doesn't love that?
Yeah, exactly. I can't give it away, but you got to see it.
All right,
So
sounds good.
That was my number 10.
Perfect.
All right, let's go into number 9. Now, I think this is probably where we're gonna start to see
Repeat, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna go first with my number 9,
Go
which is Under the Skin, and this is from Jonathan Glazer.
What a wild movie.
Yeah, exactly. Scarlett Johansson plays this alien that disguises herself as Scarlett Johansson, a beautiful woman. And, she just goes around Scotland, at night and stuff, and just seduces lonely guys into this weird world that she lives in.
She wades them into the water almost, like a liquid.
Oil.
Yeah.
And it's such a strange film, and it's one of those films that, for the average moviegoer, you probably won't enjoy it. But definitely for cinephiles, and I mean, even if you want to challenge yourself, I think that Under the Skin is definitely one that can do that. One of the things that I love the most about this film is how it just shows us the way that we look at things. Right? So the way that we look at beauty, the way that we look at other people.
When she picks up the one hiker, then his face is all disformed, and that's the one that basically gets away without losing his life. But
right,
yeah.
exactly. And this is one of those films that you can definitely geek out on, and the soundtrack, the score,
that was the best part.
Yeah, it's so brooding. It's so
eerie.
Very eerie, and it kind of brings you. It just sucks you in. It seduces you just like she does in the film. So yeah, my number 9 is Under the Skin.
It's a bizarre movie for sure. If it's you have your buddies over on a Friday night, do not pick this one. This isn't like the popcorn and fun with the family movie. I mean, this is challenge yourself. Like you're gonna sit down and watch Ingmar Bergman's Persona. Like we want to watch kind of experimental stuff going on here. So yeah, Under the Skin is a wild movie. It kind of burrows into your brain and you think about it.
It does.
For weeks.
And honestly, I can hear the score in my head right now.
Yeah.
So it's just
that's creeping me out a little bit. Are you an alien in disguise right now?
I don't know, but if we all start
Scarlett
sinking
Johansson
into
right
the
now?
water right now, then
Yeah, last year Johansson was a talking like Siri in her, and
Right.
now she's alien seductress under disguise. Interesting.
Right, but at the same time, it is we're getting off subject.
Yeah.
But it does prove that she can do different things.
She's taking
right?
cool roles.
Right.
My number 9 is a documentary actually. It is Citizen 4. Did you get a chance to peep that one?
I did get a chance to peep that one, Jason.
It's about the whole Edward Snowden NSA leak scandal. As a journalist, like we were saying at TOP, these stories came in, it seemed like every day for a while. Glenn Greenwald with The Guardian was writing these stories, and everyone was wondering who was leaking these, and eventually it came out that it was Ed Snowden. Well, this documentary, apparently, we didn't know at the time, but apparently he had hired a film crew, this director of this movie, Citizen4, to come with him and Glenn Greenwald in the hotel room in Hong Kong and actually record his first, leaks. Greenwald's there with his notepad taking the notes. Snowden is showing all these top secret documents. And the reason that it really worked for me, I mean, they took a real life thing and made it almost like a political thriller. I mean that we saw that in Captain America. It was a theme of a lot of movies this year.
Yeah.
Even Selma had the the FBI Hoover, J. Edgar Hoover stuff. But to me, it was like the movie that captured the zeitgeist of our time, of us, the privacy versus security type debate. And just the fact, a lot of documentaries are great at going back and finding a subject and doing either reenactments like Thin Blue Line or Ken Burns with moving photographs or whatever. But this one was unique in that it really had the access, like the in real time access to see this unfold. And it kind of ends on a little cliffhanger of there's another leaker waiting to take over the thing. So for me, I just thought it was a really relevant topic, and I wanted to get that documentary in there.
Yeah, definitely. And that's gonna show up on my list later.
Oh, even higher. All right.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess I could just say, yeah, it was definitely a great film, and like you said, I think what's so cool about that film is when the news unfolded, we took it in a certain way, right? Because this is what we're being told, and then when this film comes out, way after all this, we get to see what really went down, and it's like it's just the way that they kind of broke that down. We'll talk about it later. It's definitely in my
and journalists and watching the journalists decide what to share, what not to, how we're gonna roll out. I'm gonna introduce you as a character, but I'm not gonna give your name. Like to see the back end of the journalism stuff, it was interesting. I mean, and we talked about All the President's Men the first time we came on here, so I know you and I have a soft spot for that stuff.
Right.
But yeah, great doc.
Political thrillers.
Great doc.
All right, so let's go ahead, jump into number 8. I'll let you kick this one off.
Number 8 is a movie that thrilled me and infuriated me at the same time, but it was such a phenomenon that I had to put it on here. I went with Gone Girl. This movie.
Whoa, we just had the same.
Are you at 8?
Number 8.
All right.
Okay, let's go.
Well, then we can both riff on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the biggest novel phenomenons of I think it came out a couple years ago, and it's a lot of people's summer reading over the last couple years. But I just love David Fincher's style. I thought right from the beginning he's dropping clues like Ben Affleck's carrying a Mastermind board game to the bar, and so he's constantly. If you're an active viewer, you're constantly looking for stuff. And did Ben do it? Did he not? Right. I thought Rosamund Pike was like one of the unforgettable characters of the year. You think of Glenn Close, Fatal Attraction, and those kind of roles. I mean, or Kathy Bates' Misery. You're going to start thinking, oh, Rosamund Pike in terms of this crazy woman role.
Right.
But at the same time, I mean, I remember when I reviewed it, I gave it 3.5 instead of 4 out of 4, just because something with the end didn't sit well. Like I didn't need to see them back in the when we can't. I guess we're not spoiling it now, right? It's been months out.
Yeah,
it's been. So yeah, I mean, once she's back, I mean, obviously we get the big twist and everything, but when she comes, I would have rather ended when she comes back in the driveway, covered in the blood. Yeah. They embrace, they whisper something to each other's in the ear, and the media swarms around. It's this big commentary on the Nancy Grace sensationalism, and then the camera pulls up, boom. For some reason that last half hour with her back living with him just seemed like they didn't know where to end it. I know it was in the book, but something about it felt like it just kept going a little too long for me. But
yeah, I could definitely see that. I actually felt like it worked for me, and the reason being is because when you've been married to someone and then such a huge betrayal. Now, granted, they betrayed both each other. But then it was like they're forced to live with one another, and I love just watching Ben Affleck's character almost shrivel up under the covers, locking the door. I mean, this woman is powerful. Like you said, Rosamund Pike's performance was memorable, and it was just incredible. I feel like she played 2, if not 3 roles within that film. And so,
it was like Kim Novak Vertigo. You have to play yourself acting, you know what I mean? So,
right, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I felt like it worked for me because the film kind of called for it. I mean, the way that it leaves us, we know that there could be another film about just how they interact with one another after that.
Right.
But just being
Found
able
girl.
to exactly. But just being able to see the two of them kind of come together and living like separate places of the house, but yet at the same time, when you face the media, you have to put your face on. And exactly what you said, just the whole Nancy Grace, the way that we look at when people go missing, how that information is given. And it was almost like a political campaign where Ben Affleck's character literally has to put his face on every time that he steps out.
You're trying to win the court of public opinion more than you are the actual law. Here.
Exactly. And I will say this again. This film proved to me that Tyler Perry does have some acting chops.
The scene where he's throwing the peanuts at him. Remember, he goes, "If you sound phony," they're going through the rehearsal for the TV interview.
Right.
he said, "If you sound smug or something, I'm gonna throw a peanut at you." And that was hilarious.
Yeah,
it was one of the highlights of the movie. And Neil Patrick Harris too.
Oh yeah. Oh man, he was so creepy. And the biggest part about his character was, he said. When she goes to find him or whatever, and then he's like, we're gonna get your hair back the way you like it. We're gonna do all these things the way you like it, and he's like stroking her back or whatever, and it's like, no, this is really the way you like it, but like it's like she jumped out of the pan and into the fire, trying to.
Well, that's the part that I mentioned Vertigo, but that's what it reminded me of. He's like Jimmy Stewart trying to get her hair to look exactly like this ideal object that he remembered.
Right.
This blonde, So yeah, that movie was disturbing on many levels and kind of stuck with me for a while. I personally don't think they totally stuck the ending, but to me it was such a cultural phenomenon that it was like the date nightmare movie of the year.
Yeah,
what I mean? So.
Definitely. And Fincher is one of my favorite directors working right now.
Favorite Fincher?
Like, you put me on the spot right now?
On, man.
Seriously? Dude, I don't know, man.
I gotta go 7. I love 7.
Yeah.
Social Network, Fight Club.
I was gonna say maybe The Social Network. It's like a toss-up between 7 and Social Network. I mean, the way that... Like, I've watched Social Network over and over again, and it's like, it doesn't get old.
Fantastic.
Anyways, all right, let's move forward.
Number 7.
Number 7. Did we talked about this? Maybe not. I know I talked about it on the show before, but we sat next to each other during the screening, and that was Interstellar for me.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Christopher Nolan's new film about Earth, and, it's becoming a wasteland. Dust is taking over. We need to find food. Matthew McConaughey, he is a former astronaut. He goes out into space to try to find an inhabitable planet for us to live on. I really enjoyed this film, I think just as a filmmaker. And as I was watching it, I was just like, wow, like this guy is swinging for the fences. And it's like these lofty concepts, but this is what I love about film is it can show us worlds that we don't live in. We literally in this film, figuratively, but I felt like the world that they lived in, it's not too far away from like what we do now. And as you saw space, as you saw these different planets, to me, I felt as though if that didn't stir up a whole new crew of NASA wannabes, that this film does that, And so, granted, the end to me was atrocious. I literally groaned out loud at a certain point, and I guess it's been long enough. Spoiler alert, but going into the wormhole after that, I was done.
Yeah.
But
I like the concept of that love as a tangible force in the universe, the father, daughter, whatever. That's nice and wholesome, but it just felt like they were trying to cram too much in there in the end, and the movie kind of lost me a little bit with that.
Yeah.
I actually prefer Gravity much more than Interstellar, but
I would say for Gravity, the thing that was awesome about that movie was more of it was like start to finish what's going to happen next. Yeah, exactly. For Interstellar, I felt like I really gravitated towards the relationships.
Pun intended.
So. Yeah. So with Matthew McConaughey and his daughter, who eventually turns into Jessica Chastain, but like I just, especially since I have a daughter, I just really believe that. And that scene where he's just like bawling like a baby as he watches like all the messages that they
Skype
left for him.
video or whatever, yeah.
Oh man, I was just
How do you not have a lump in your throat during that scene? You know?
Exactly. Yeah. So there was because of the strength of that relationship though, that's what really helped me to watch the rest of the film. So like I just felt like, okay, I've emotionally bought into this. I think that's also why the wormhole to me just felt like a cop-out.
Right.
Like I would have preferred him die. You know what I mean? Because that's what mentally I said, okay, this is tough. Like this is not an American film. The main character is about to die. But I can go with that because that makes this film like that much more beautiful. Right. But that didn't happen, and that kind of made me mad.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, the whole Act 3 kind of ran it off the rails for me. Yeah. So it wasn't in my top 10, but it was it was like the movie going experience in terms of go 3D IMAX and, let Hans Zimmer score actually shake your seat a little bit.
Oh, man, yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, like Hans Zimmer, he's one of my favorite composers. I say that all the time. Those pipe organs. It just made
what was it like again?
It just really made you feel on edge. So, like you said, it wasn't necessarily like one of the greatest films of 2014, but it definitely was like a very entertaining, like you said, movie-going experience. Yeah. So that was my number 7.
Absolutely. My number 7, Jake Gyllenhaal and Nightcrawler.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's so good. So good. I think, there was a lot of creepy roles this year from, Steve Carell and Foxcatcher and Rosamund Pike and Gone Girl. But to me, this was the creepiest role of the year. It's Gyllenhaal plays this L.A. lowlife. He's kind of on the streets of L.A. at night. It's kind of like a noir. It kind of reminds me of Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver. He's just this lowlife trying to just find meaning in his life. And he buys a video camera and a police scanner, and he starts following, what the crime blotter is. He goes to the crime scene with his camera and films it and sells the footage to a local TV station where the TV producer is Renee Russo. And she's almost just as scary as he is because she actually agrees to air some of this stuff. And it's really bloody footage. And it's like a lot of journalism ethics are being violated.
Right.
But eventually he starts beating the cops to the scenes and making little ethical compromises. I might move this little body slightly to get a better shot. I might do this. And it's just slow decline of, I got away with that. I'm going to do this. I got away with that. I'm going to do this. Because it's giving me better footage. And by the end, you are shocked at how far this guy will go. Wow. It is, as someone in media, it blew me away in terms of, they do exaggerate how much you would be able as a cameraman to obstruct justice. Like, you have to go into the movie like knowing that that's a little exaggerated, but it serves to make a larger point about how my beef with, and I think we do a great job at TOP on this, but my beef with some local TV stations sometimes is the whole, it's for the whole hour is crime scene. Right. It's the caution tape graphic. It's, if it bleeds, it leads, as Bill Paxton's character says in the movie. It really dives into that nugget, into that element of society and just blows it up. And I haven't really seen a movie about that subject, but Gyllenhaal is great start to finish, and by the end, you'll be holding your breath. Got to see it.
Okay, yeah, definitely, and I want to. It's one of those things that, like, I think it came out around the time where I was having to watch a bunch of other movies, and like it slipped through the cracks. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, this looks kind of crazy, but now I'm like, I should have seen it. But I will say this, from what I've heard from a bunch of other film critics, there's supposed to be a scene within it in which we finally kind of see him. It almost seems like he has remorse for it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm trying to think of what scene you're talking about.
It's supposed to be like after he's just done what she said, like tinkered with the scene and all that stuff. He's reviewing the footage, and then he kind of like has a moment, and then that moment it kind of like gives him a little bit of humanity.
He has moments of choice, and he always ends up choosing the wrong path, man.
Nice. Okay, well, number 7 for you is Nightcrawler. I'm going to have to check that out. All right, what do you have for number 6?
Number 6, I have a movie that's not like Nightcrawler at all. The Imitation Game.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I really enjoyed it. It kind of has the vibe of, like The King's Speech or A Beautiful Mind or, a period movie. about a whiz genius. And it's the story of Alan Turing, who was a code breaker for the Brits back during World War II. He was assigned to break the Nazis' supposedly unbreakable code, which was called Enigma. And in order to do it, you'd need, I can't remember the stats he throws out, but you'd basically have to, it would take you like 90 years to go through the amount of things that you would need to go through in a single day to make it work. So basically what this guy does is played by Benedict Cumberbatch in a great performance. This guy, more or less, he invents the world's first computer and able to do this, inputting all the different probabilities of what this code could mean, and it spits out an answer. But it's way more than just that. It's also, I don't want to give it away, but because it is relatively new, it's only been in theaters a couple weeks.
Yeah.
But in addition to being this cool code breaking, math inventing the computer thing, there's a deeply human riddle that we're trying to solve throughout the movie about his emotion, and the name emotion. It all lies in the name of, or his identity, I guess we could say.
There you go.
The name of the first computer, he names it after someone from his past, and it reveals a lot about who he is and who knew this whole deep story of a man's identity lied behind the first computer.
Right.
It's amazing. I really enjoyed it. I thought the script was great.
Yeah. Imitation Game did not make my top 10, but I mean, it's definitely respectable. I understand how you pick that. Cumberbatch is like on the top of his game. I mean, if he's in a movie, then it's gonna be good, or at least his performance is. And I felt like that was one of the ones that the ensemble cast just did a really great job.
Keira Knightley.
Yeah, propelling the film forward. Man, I want to go more into detail, but I'm like, maybe I'll spoil it, so I don't want to do that, like you said, because to me, I keep forgetting that, like, even though I saw a screening of it a while back,
we got a pile of DVD disc screeners for awards, but most people haven't seen it probably.
Exactly.
But yeah, let's just say his identity.
Right.
But when I remember when I first saw the trailer, I was like, okay, great cast, but how are you going to take a story of code breaking and numbers and make it visually interesting?
Right.
And I just admired how they did it, A, by focusing on the relationships, but B, they found cool ways with transitions. Like I remember there was a submarine moving through the water, and all of a sudden it cuts to a guy stubbing out a cigarette on a wall. They just found it's really well directed and written, and it repays on repeat viewings. I've found, because I showed the screener to my parents while I was home, and they loved it, and I was noticing all kinds of new stuff. So it definitely repays. Once you know the end and his identity, there's more sprinkled throughout. You enjoy it the second time around.
Yeah, and I think part of that's exciting, and we'll move on to my number 6, but is the fact that, like you said, this is like the first computer, basically.
Yeah.
And so seeing them, how they work through it, and one of the things, oh man, what's the new Angelina Jolie film that's out, Unbroken?
Unbroken, yeah.
Right? So these like kind of World War II films, it gives me a lot of respect for the past.
Greatest generation, man.
Yeah, like Unbroken, when you have the scene where like they're actually in the plane and you're just like looking straight down. Yeah. You fall down, like you're falling down, but it's like that, wow, look at how far we've come, but at the same time, look at how hard it was back then to be able to do some of the things they did. So it definitely gives you a lot of respect for everyone in prior generations.
Absolutely.
All right, so my number 6, you mentioned it in your honorable mentions, but it's Locke. By Stephen Knight.
Movie.
Yes. Oh man, dude. I mean, you would not think that a film in which a man is just driving in a car the entire time would be so engaging. Right. And I felt as though, so Ivan Locke is played by Tom Hardy. He's a dedicated family man. And in the beginning, it's the eve of like the biggest construction thing, and
biggest moment of his career.
In his career, and all of like, what was it, London? And so he makes this decision where he's not gonna be there for it, and he's like the head honcho, and so everyone is like, flipping their lids. They're like, what is going on? So whatever that thing, the reason that he's left the job site, and knowing how level-headed he is, it must be huge. And they reveal it pretty quick within
all
the film.
All through Bluetooth phone calls.
Right.
And his face. He tells
Exactly.
the whole story with his face.
Exactly.
It's unbelievable.
And as you watch it, it's just riveting because, it's all in the sleeves.
Yeah.
Like he starts rolling those
Yeah, oh,
sleeves
yeah,
up,
yeah.
and by the end of it, like they're way up here.
Yeah.
But I just felt like, as for filmmaking, it just shows that the key is having a great script, a good story.
Mm-hmm.
Actors, as you and I both know, like they're not just cattle that you move
Right.
around. Like you actually need talented actors, and Tom Hardy once again proves that he is a very talented actor. I won't spoil the entire film for someone that hasn't seen it, but it was out in April, so at this point,
Let's go for it.
Let's go for it. Okay, so the decision that he's making, instead of like going home for the night and then returning to work the next morning
for the big job,
he decides that he's gonna go to London because a woman that he got pregnant outside of his marriage is about to have the baby.
Right.
And so it's just amazing how for me it's like a caution tale for anyone that's thinking about cheating,
Right.
because all of the emotions that you
Right.
have to deal with.
Look what could come of this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's talking to his sons.
Yeah.
But like that conversation when like you're talking to your son, but like
Yeah.
you need to talk to your wife.
Right.
But you know that your son is gonna eventually find out.
Right.
So how do you keep
Some
your level and
layered
your
of
calm?
emotion.
Like
Oh my
this is
God.
just I'm
Yeah.
like, what is
Yeah.
going on? And then he's talking to the woman that's in the hospital.
Yeah.
The woman
About
is a
to
little
give birth. Yeah.
Exactly. She's a little off.
Right.
He clearly doesn't care, like love her.
Right.
Which he repeatedly
Even
says.
though she tries to get him to say it a million times. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's just like calm about it. Like, no, I don't love you. This is
It's just
one.
this is the right thing to do. I need to be there for the
Exactly.
birth of my son.
And
Yeah.
then at the same time, like he's dealing with, which I think is hilarious, he's looking in the back window, his past,
Yeah.
with his father.
Yep.
His father wasn't there for him, so that is why he's deciding he's gonna go to London, because he wants to be there for this unborn child.
Yeah.
And by the end of the film, like, his everything that he's worked for is totally ripped apart. And I think he says something like that in the film, where he's like, in this one night, like my whole life I have nothing.
Yeah.
Because he can't go home. Like he doesn't have a house to go back to now that his wife knows. His kids are gonna hate him, all that kind of stuff. So it's just an amazing cautionary tale, but at the same time, like just as a filmmaker, like Stephen Knight as the director, that must have been extremely fun to like.
And the audacity to try that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like Hitchcock saying, all right, Jimmy Stewart, you're going to be in one location the whole movie and look out this rear window. Like, he's like, hey, Tom Hardy, you're going to sit in the driver's seat and you're going to have to carry the movie. Have fun with that. And he does.
Right.
It's just gutsy. That takes some guts. That's cojones right there, man. Totally.
Definitely. All right, so Locke was my number 6. We hit your number 6,
Yeah,
right?
Imitations.
All right, so let's hit your number 5. What's your number 5?
Number 5, I chose this year's Sundance champ, Whiplash. I loved Whiplash.
Dude, are you kidding me?
Nice.
Number 8 and number 5.
Exactly.
All right.
So, yeah, I mean, so if you remember 2 years ago, the Sundance champ was Beast of the Southern Wild. Loved that movie. Gave us Kavenzane Wallace.
Right.
Last year was Fruitvale Station. Another great movie. Gave that 4 stars. And then this year, it's Whiplash. It's this story of a drummer who's almost like Rocky in his grit and determination, like
Right.
I'm gonna train as hard as I can until I have blisters on my drumsticks.
Right.
So he goes off to this New York Music Conservatory where he runs into a really tough, strict instructor played by J.K. Simmons, who we all loved as the dad in Juno.
Yeah.
So I've been rooting for this guy ever since then. He's been on TV shows and stuff too.
Right.
But he makes the movie. I mean, he has some profane rants. That would rival Arlie Ermy in Full Metal Jacket.
Right,
This is like Full Metal
right.
Drumstick. I mean, this thing's crazy. He's slinging cymbals and drums at people. Yeah. But it really reminded me of that.
It does.
Or Gossett and Officer and Gentleman. Whatever you're,
Yeah.
But that hard instructor that pushes you beyond where you could go, but in hindsight, you're like, man, was that really was that legal? Was that moral? Should he have done that?
Right.
And the kid is played by the kid from
Miles Teller.
Miles Teller
Yep.
from The Spectacular Now,
Yeah.
which was a great movie last year.
Yeah.
I just thought the way that it was cut, it kind of cut on syncopated beats with the music,
Right.
all that great jazz music, and that final. To me, what really sold it as like one of my favorite movies of the year was that final stretch, all music. No words between, Simmons and Miles Teller, but it goes from a range of emotions from, at first he thinks, oh, I have an opportunity, then he realizes it's betrayal, then it's almost revenge, and then, resurrection, and then mutual respect until the end. They're like, now he's like coaching him, and he delivers on a bang.
Right.
That end was just a whirlwind that sold it for me. Whiplash. Give you whiplash.
Whiplash, number 5. Let me tell you, this was at the time when we were watching those screeners. That's when I saw it. I saw it when we were watching all the screeners. And I'm sitting there. It's like 11 at night. And I'm like, I guess I'll watch Whiplash. I've heard it's really good.
Right.
I pop it in, and I am just in my seat, riveted, looking at the screen the entire time. And, in my review, I just said, this is Rocky with band instruments.
Oh, nice.
Because, literally, Miles Teller, from the opening frame, he's just practicing at his passion. And that's what I loved about the film. It's like we all can relate to when we have a passion for something in life. And you can tell he really is working hard at this. And like you said, J.K. Simmons, if he doesn't get the Oscar
supporting
for
actor,
supporting,
right?
this, it's ridiculous. He is totally an atmosphere changer. When he walks in, he literally will go like this, and then you can just I feel like in the film they were acting, but I feel like on set, everyone was watching him, and I'm sure that everyone the actors got a lesson in acting. You know what I mean? Just to sit at his feet. But
I was sitting in the theater seat, and I was scared of him. I was like, hope I don't drop my popcorn. This guy's going to throw something at me off the screen. He was that transfixing for me. I was like, I couldn't take my eyes off. I hope I don't let him down.
I'm sorry. Oh God. Oh man, yeah.
But you know what I mean? Totally.
You're killing me, Jason.
Totally.
Oh man, yeah. No, it totally was like that. But at the same time, because of the passion that they both shared for music, and just to watch Miles Teller, his ultimate arc, as he does come into his own. Unfortunately, he was hazed to get there, but he gets there, and like you said, by the time, because man, you just gotta watch it. By the time they do get to that last scene, it's just amazing to see the war without words. You literally are watching, and you're saying, "Wow." Miles Teller is telling J.K. Simmons X.
It's visual storytelling and musical storytelling.
Exactly. Now he's saying this to him. No, he's going back at him. And then by the end, I was just like,
bravo.
DVD menu. Play. Exactly. So,
and what kind of rounded it out too was not, of course, everything we just said, but also, the passion, but also the consequences of the passion. He says, I can't date you anymore to the love interest.
Right.
Because I can't date you anymore because I'm not going to be the best at what I could be. I might be some version of it, but I won't get to complete greatness unless I spend forever laying at home looking at posters of Bird or whatever and just drumming.
Right.
And to me, that's what made the movie. It was like, man, if you want to be the best or do you not? And what compromises do you have to make along the way? Or is there a happy medium? I would like to think so.
Exactly.
But man.
Yeah, and speaking of Social Network, it was kind of like that opening scene in Social Network where he's just being a jerk.
Yeah.
And now, granted, I think there's
to
a little
Rooney Mara.
difference. Yeah.
My girlfriend.
But with Miles Teller, his character, you do see a moment where later on he does kind of regret it.
Right.
He's ostracized himself from everyone else. And in his isolation, it's kind of like, man, who can I go to? So it also kind of shows how you can't be, on an island by yourself in this world.
Right.
But at the same time, sometimes
even Rocky needs an Adrian.
Exactly.
You mentioned Rocky. So,
Exactly. You gotta find that great balance between the two. But man, number 5.
Whiplash.
That was my desert island pick where like from 2014,
Right.
if there was one movie that like I had to keep watching over and over, I was on a desert island, it would be Whiplash.
I know. Except even as you're getting the coconuts down, you're like, I hope I don't let down. All right,
man. Number 4. So my number 4 was actually what you had mentioned earlier, Citizen 4.
Oh, yeah.
The documentary,
stuff.
Laura Poitras. I really, like you said, I totally was engaged in it. Like I said before, what amazed me was the fact that, this film was shot before any of the news media came out. And to me, it just shows us how our media can be so warped at times.
Yeah.
We get those fear tactics, we hear these messages, but we don't get both sides of the story. The story is whatever will come across as a good story, if that makes sense. So rather than like once you're able to actually see Snowden, one of the scenes that I loved the most in this film was he's getting ready, and I think this is when it initially hit the U.S. Like his name was out there, Edward Snowden. He's looking in the mirror like he's getting ready, but he's not like at the TV. Like listening.
Where Wolf Blitzer is talking about him.
He really doesn't care because all he wanted to do was get this out there to the general public. And I think that was so powerful because, whether you believe that, the decision he made was patriotic or unpatriotic, it just kind of shows more of him and who he is or, who he was at that time. And so I found it incredible just to be able to be a fly on the wall. And for Greenwald, like the scene where his I'm not sure if the total relationship, but his boyfriend or
I think it was
his partner is held for 9 hours. And then he gets out and he's just like, basically like, I didn't really sign up for this. Like he's like frazzled. And it just goes, it shows us a lot about how, secrets, our government, just makes you think. So that documentary definitely stuck with me in terms of 2014.
The scene for me in that was when the fire alarm keeps going off, and he's like in the middle of explaining stuff to Greenwald, and all of a sudden it's, are they, did they catch me? You can see the paranoia on your face because you're leaking stuff that everyone in the highest of places all the way up to the top is going to be coming after you.
Definitely. And so many times he even says that, something along the lines like, I don't know if I'll be here. You know what I mean? Like, so he's like kind of like, I'm going to die. Like, they're going to kill me because of this. And just... That's incredible. It's almost like even Barack Obama, like when he first got into office, he made a statement about like he talked to his wife about running, and basically I forgot what he said, but what stuck in my head was he was like, I'm willing to, if I'm assassinated, I'm assassinated, but this is something that we as a family agreed like we're gonna do. So that was my number 4.
Great. My number 4 was actually another documentary. I went with Life Itself about Roger Ebert. I just love this. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a little high for the top 10, but I would put it somewhere in my top 10. But it landed at 4 for me, just because. I mean, I connect with it on such a personal level as movie critics, but I just thought the director Steve James did such a great job with it. I interviewed him. It was the closing night of AFI Docs. They asked if I would come, MC or moderate the Q&A afterwards. So it was me and Steve James, and then one of Roger Ebert's best childhood friends on the stage. And just to be there was incredible. But just to talk about how they went about chronicling a man's life was wild to me. It was I really enjoyed the fact. To me, what really stuck out for me was just charting the time that he was on this earth. Like his first, remember I think it said, did you see that?
I didn't see it.
Okay, so one of his first columns that they highlight in the movie was the church bombing, which they show in Selma, but it was they showed a clip of what Ebert wrote for his school paper where he was young at the time. And just to see how engaged he was with, what was going on around him was great. But then he started as a movie critic for, I think, in Chicago for the newspaper in 1967, which was, as we know, was a huge year. That was like the start of the Hollywood Renaissance. That was, Bonnie and Clyde, The Graduate, In the Heat of the Night, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Cool Hand Luke. Like, this year was insane.
The Encyclopedia.
In Cold Blood. Oh, 67 was great. But Steve James intersperses clips from some of Ebert's favorite movies. And they show the scene with Bonnie and Clyde when Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty, she's stroking his gun and all this stuff. It just showed this wild period of this flowering of American cinema.
Right.
And then to follow Ebert through, with the different technologies. He goes with TV with Gene Siskel, and you see their outtakes behind the scenes of bickering. Just the very notion of Two Thumbs Up, just seeing them create that.
Wow.
And then now to the internet and social media, it was wild. And then to see his, here's this guy who's made his whole living reviewing movies with a TV show and everything, and now he can't talk because his jaw was removed from his cancer. So it was personal to me. It was very touching, and it just reaffirmed what the movies do. He has a line in there that says, movies are a machine that generates empathy. They allow us to, walk in another person's skin, more or less. It doesn't matter what country they're from or what background or what race, religion, whatever. When you see a movie through the eyes of that filmmaker, and there's so many touching moments in there that reaffirmed why we do what we do.
Yeah.
So I put it in number 4.
Awesome.
Life Itself, it's called.
Yeah, we didn't get a screener for that one, at least I didn't. And when it first hit, I believe it was video on demand as well.
Yeah.
And I was gonna get it. I don't remember what happened. I'm gonna get it now because it's like kind of sacrilegious not to get it as a film critic.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, by all means, everything I've heard about it is just, it's an incredible film. So
The director was the guy that made Hoop Dreams.
yeah, exactly. And that in and of itself is like must see. So.
Yeah, and Siskel and Ebert named Hoop Dreams their best movie of '94.
I remember that.
Above Pulp Fiction and Gump and Shawshank and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it was interesting that he got to be the one to come back and repay the favor and make a documentary about Ebert.
Right.
So I loved it.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So we're about to hit the top three. The top 3. And I got a feeling that we're probably going to say the same films. My prediction is that...
It probably will be,
my prediction is that the number 1 film we're going to have in common.
Okay.
But then 2 and 3
will
will probably...
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's do it.
So number 3, let's say it at the same time, Birdman.
Selma.
All right.
I think you just nailed what, is how it's going to go.
All right. So I'll go first.
Okay.
Birdman, Alejandro Inarritu. This, I've talked about this film on this show before, but, Michael Keaton is a former, movie star, but specifically he played a superhero, Birdman.
Which is basically Batman.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And now he's trying to put on this play. Man, the film is just, as a film lover, it's definitely like an art house film, right? I love how they have the diegetic and non-diegetic sound, right? So the sound that you hear that like you don't see on the screen, which is non-diegetic, and then diegetic that you're like right now as I'm drumming, you can see me drumming it and you hear it. And they do that literally with the drums.
J.K. Simmons did not approve of your drumming.
Yeah, he didn't. He didn't. Did I drag or was I? What was it?
Are you rushing or are you dragging?
Exactly. Yeah. But it was just a magnificent use of cinema's language, of technique with the long takes. Because they use long takes throughout the film, it really feels like you're just watching, one nonstop film.
One continuous single take.
Exactly.
The illusion of it, yeah.
And because of that, we're talking about theater. And in theater, if you mess up on stage, the whole crowd sees you messed up on stage. And so that pressure as an actor acting in a film where, these long takes, you can't mess up. You feel the atmosphere of what it might be on Broadway. I would think that's what it's like. But yeah, the cinematography is just amazing.
It was the same guy that shot Gravity.
Yeah.
Which opened with a long single take.
Exactly, exactly. And then on top of that, it's cool because it's kind of trippy. You don't really know if what's going on in Keaton, his name is Regan in the film, if it's real or it's not. but then it's also kind of answered because like he'll, you know, use his magic powers or whatever, but then like somebody will come into the room and suddenly it seems like, dude, why did you mess the room up, you know? So
it had that Black Swan quality where he's haunted by that darker side, you know, and the whole movie you're trying to figure out where the crossover happens,
Right, and you know what, not to, because you're going to probably bring it up, not to say everything, but I think the relationships within the film, again, this is a film in which Michael Keaton, he has his daughter, Emma Stone, who his daughter just got out of rehab, and so, you know, you can tell that the relationship between him and his daughter is fractured, but at the same time, there's a love there. You know, Edward Norton, wow.
What a performance.
I mean, goodness.
If J.K. Simmons wasn't here this year,
Yeah.
Ed might take it.
Yeah,
That role is crazy.
Definitely. And man, it was fun. Like another great ensemble cast. Where it seemed where Zach Galifianakis, as Michael Parsons said when he was on the show, Zach Galifianakis is playing the straight man.
Yeah.
Like who would ever think
no
that?
more.
Yeah, exactly. So it seemed like the cast had fun, and I feel like Inarritu really turned in a great film. And the backstory, there's such a struggle to get funding for the film. And again, like if you hear the concept, you know, this like pretty much one continuous take of a film, it seems crazy. And it seems like nobody wanted to fund it, but they eventually pushed through. And now we're talking about it at the end of the year as one of the best of the 2014. So
absolutely.
That was my number 3.
It is going to be higher on my list, so I'll wait until I say more until that comes. But my number 3, I had Selma, which I'm sure you have as well. I thought Ava DuVernay, I think. Yeah. I thought she turned in a heck of a movie.
Wow.
This is really great filmmaking.
Right.
I know it's taking, in recent weeks, it's taken some criticism. People are firing at it about the treatment of Lyndon B. Johnson. They say he's portrayed as too much of a jerk or too much of a reluctant hero and whatever. I mean, I think if you read those articles and then you go see the movie, I think you'll be like, I don't see what all the fuss was about.
Right.
Because in the end, I mean, he comes across harsh. I mean the way he speaks and everything. But I mean, there's that scene where it's him and Governor, George Wallace of Alabama, and he goes, I'm not going to go down in the history books with you, and he does the right thing, to steal a phrase. So I mean, I don't think the criticism against LBJ is that big of a deal. To me, with the central figure, I thought they did a really good job of humanizing King. And David Oyelowo, oh my God, what a performance. He looks like him. You take screen grabs, you're like, is that from the movie or is that a file photo?
Yeah.
But I thought they did a good job of humanizing him, warts and all. He's not portrayed as just a great saint. They hint at the infidelity and with Coretta Scott and all that. And show his him grieving when some of his followers are killed. There's those really intense human emotions.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was a really well done movie, and as a director, she uses that slow motion violence with the church bombing or people getting stomped. It's slow mo, or then when they're on the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
Yeah.
There's that crane shot that starts on it and comes down to the followers, and the high angle kind of denotes like a change about to happen.
Right.
Which is different from the Bloody Sunday scene when they get trampled, which is more of a ground level shot. But I just thought the filmmaking in that was tremendous, and on a topic that's very, very relevant with a lot of what's going on in the last year. Just this message of, whether you're out in the streets protesting or for, you're on the other side of the spectrum and you're like, oh man, the revenge killings against these cops in Brooklyn, oh, that's what outrages me. Wherever you fell last year on this thing, this movie has lessons for you. It's this peaceful protest, equal rights movie that I think should be seen and shown in classes for years to come.
Definitely.
It's a great movie.
Definitely. So, just going into number 2, that was Selma for me.
Yeah.
And we'll get into the number 1. And honestly, it would have been my number 1, but number 1 is number 1, and I think we probably have the same. Because, and we'll talk about why. Exactly. But, man, wow, what a powerful movie. Let me tell you, nobody knows this, right? Except for maybe my wife. But when I went to the film, I was like, man, I don't feel like going to see another biopic, specifically like another black biopic, because we had what James Brown,
Jackie Robinson,
yeah,
James Brown.
And the James Brown biopic was cool, but it was kind of sensationalized.
Right.
What's his name?
Chadwick Boseman.
Chadwick Boseman did an awesome, phenomenal
Dynamite,
job. But as a story,
Right.
the story just didn't click for me. So that's what I was feeling like it was going to be going into it. Jason, I tell you the truth, 15 minutes into it, I was crying. Because I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so ungrateful. Here I am.
Right.
Here I am, black film critic,
Yeah.
going to this screening
Yeah.
in Washington, D.C., sitting amongst
Yeah.
all other races.
To pinch yourself, yeah.
Exactly, and I don't want to go see this biopic about MLK. The Ava DuVernay just does. I mean, if she doesn't get nominated, I'm gonna
think
be
she
upset.
should be, yeah.
Because the film is phenomenal. In taking just a section of the civil rights movement. And saying pretty much everything you need to know about the civil rights movement, right? Never before have I seen MLK portrayed, like you said, with such human qualities, right?
Sure.
Like
He's a man.
Exactly.
On a rounded
He's a man.
character, yes.
And the camera hovers over him many times, or it hovers right behind him, and it's that gravity of the situation that's weighing down on him, and it's just done so beautifully. Even in the beginning with, as you talked about, like the four little girls, I mean, it kind of came out of nowhere, like,
Right.
And that's what I loved about it. Everything about it to me felt unique.
People gasped in the theater with it.
Exactly.
It doesn't say here's the bombing coming.
Right,
you know,
right.
Yeah.
But and like you were talking about earlier in the show, how they did use like the FBI files.
Oh, the J. Edgar Hoover wiretap.
Yeah, exactly. And they did it in such a genius way where it's like, 10:53 p.m. King is at at home. Yeah, exactly.
Trying to dig up whatever so we can paint him as a communist and get him out of here or something. I mean, it was that part was creepy.
Right. And I felt as though the film overall, to me, it gave me a lot more respect for the civil rights movement in the sense that. For this is one of the first times I felt like they showed the chess game that had to be played, right? Sure. The fact that, we do need drama, as they call it, where we need to see some people getting beaten. Right, we need to see some dogs biting kids, you know what I mean? Like, we need this in order to get on the TV, to get a bigger audience, because obviously by just, kind of picketing or whatever, nobody's really listening.
Right.
And so for the first time, I feel like this film kind of really depicted just the amount of pure strength that, prior generation had to have in order to make this successful, to be smart enough to understand that with violence, it's not going to help, but, by nonviolence.
Right.
And having the
stores
strength
on fire isn't going to do it. We
exactly.
Need to be, let's take the high road here.
Right.
People will notice. Yeah.
And having the strength to take a beating and continue forward. I think that to me was just powerful. Overall, the film is again incredible. It's definitely. It would have been my number one, but there's another number one.
Well, and you mentioned it before we move on, but I'm gonna just final point on Selma. You mentioned the point about how it was a very specific slice of the civil rights movement, and to me, that's what made it. I think she and the screenwriter, they did such a disciplined job of, we're gonna take this one little slice that says so much.
Right.
I mean, I think a lesser filmmaker would have tried to cram everything in. We're doing a King biopic. Let's open with I Have a Dream in 63. Then let's include the Civil Rights Act of 64. Then we'll get to the Voting Rights of 65. And then we'll show him get assassinated at the end.
Right.
And when I say lesser filmmaker, I don't mean someone bad. I mean, even Spielberg stayed around too long in Lincoln. Like, I didn't need to see him get assassinated. He should have ended when he walked down the hallway.
Yeah.
Or, I guess maybe I'm thinking of like the Lee Daniels jumping around approach. But that was a different story altogether.
Yeah.
That was about him working with the president. So he had to. But in this, to take 65 and the Voting Rights Act, to me, there were so many little poignant moments in there because it speaks to today, I think. Because with that, everyone's like, okay, fine. Slavery is abolished. You can drink from the same water fountain now. Why are you still mad? And you could say the same thing. People would say it's something more post-racial society now. But to start in 65, when people could say that, oh, you've had so much progress, why do you need to keep going?
Right.
Then you go in there and you show all the remnants of Jim Crow and all the disturbingly creative ways that you still get denied from the ballot box. Like, to me, that is the powerful slice of the history.
Right.
And to get that passed, just the right to be able to vote take part in your own democracy, you know?
Exactly.
It seems so bizarre. Like, okay, that seems like it's a no-brainer, but that's why that slice of the story worked. And I thought they were so disciplined in telling that part.
Totally agree. And they say that within the film. They're like, if I can't vote for, my elected officials, therefore the, rules and the laws that are created are, not advantageous to me and my family.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, it's just a powerful, incredible film.
It could have been number one in any other year.
Yeah.
If it was a different year, a weaker year, that would have been number one.
Right.
Easily.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
To me, the top three here are like almost interchangeable.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, depending on what kind of reason, but these are all films that you're definitely going to hear about.
Right.
All right, so you're number two.
So Selma was your number two.
Right.
My number two is what your number three was.
Right.
Birdman. I love this movie. I sat transfixed the entire time. It reminded me of, did you ever see the Bob Fosse directed movie, All That Jazz? It was 1979 with Roy Scheider, the guy from the chief from Jaws. The actor he basically plays Fosse's on-screen, proxy. But he's trying to put on a Broadway play, and he's popping pills, and it's just a wild movie. It reminded me of that, or it reminded me of Fellini's 8.5, or the Charlie Kaufman movie with Philip Seymour Hoffman, Synecdoche, New York, who's also trying to put on a play.
Right.
I think this movie deserves to go in that timeline of those types of movies as just a tour de force movie. You mentioned it earlier, the way that Inarritu directs it, along with the cinematographer from Gravity, to make it all look like one single take was mind blowing to me.
Right.
I mean, I've spoken to some other people who I said, "Oh, didn't you like how it was a single take?" And, what? Because you're not trained to look for it.
Right.
So I would say if you haven't seen Birdman, don't be too quick to bail on it. Don't turn it off after 20 minutes because it's too bizarre, like some people that I know. Tell yourself, I'm going to go in and look for that this is all one continuous shot, the illusion of that. And just marvel at how it whips from him being in the dressing room to follow him out the halls onto the stage and then back out in the halls. And then now we're out on the stage, but there's a live audience there. How did that happen?
Right.
And now we're up on the rooftop for the love scene with Emma Stone. And then we're on the catwalk where Emma Stone and Ed Norton are having romance. We're going to swoop down from that. And somehow Ed Norton's back down on stage. We never cut. I don't know how that. That's like Citizen Kane trickery. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then we're back out in Times Square and then coming back in. And it's all the illusion of this thing. It was mind-blowing to me. And then that final shot, you know what I mean? Oh, to me, I loved it. So that's my Emma Stone. Do you like that?
I like that.
But to me, it blew me away. I mean, to me, again, any other year, maybe I still wrestle. Was that really my number one? Because like, if I had to pick one movie like the Desert Island, I would probably just dive into that over and over again and just revel in it. Like it was filmmaking genius to me. It really was. And then to top it off, the fact that it was Keaton doing basically playing himself, wearing his heart on his superhero sleeve.
Right.
Going into the bar with the critic who's going to pan the play without seeing it. Yeah. There were so many moments where it was this commentary on highbrow, the theater, versus mainstream movie, blockbuster superhero movies, and it did this commentary on it that I think to me it's the class of the year for me, and for some reason I didn't put it on number one, but let's get to number one.
No, but real quick, in that scene with the critic, it was like, it made me think too, because it's like, man, as a critic, like, I pan something or whatever, but it's like, what else do you do? And so it did make me feel like, I need to make another film. But yeah, that Birdman was incredible. All right, number one, we both have it, I'm sure, right?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. Boyhood. Yes. Dude, we killed this list. Like,
Lots of crossover.
Either we're just like, we think the same, or like,
I promise you,
we good. Yeah.
Cameras, we did not plan this at all.
Exactly.
We didn't even know what the lists were beforehand, but all right.
All right, so Richard Linklater decides to, okay.
One-of-a-kind movie.
Yeah, so as I say all the time, cinema is one of the youngest of the arts, right? Ooh, yeah. So we haven't seen something like this. Richard Linklater takes the same cast over a course of 12 years. So we see L.R. Coltrane grow up.
I think he's 6 years old when it starts.
Right, until he's 18.
Yeah.
And this is just an amazing piece of work. The fact that we're able to see this young kid grow up, but not only that, like this whole story congeals. It makes sense, and it feels like you were a fly on the wall with this family.
You're watching a real life happen.
Exactly. Like I felt like this is more of a documentary that than a narrative film. And not only that, everyone's character arc is just so natural. It's so genuine. You see how the main character, L.R. Coltrane, how he turns into the young adult that he is.
Right.
His mom, Patricia Arquette.
Who should be nominated, if not win.
Yeah, definitely.
Supporting actress, yeah. She does the heavy lifting.
Exactly. Going through 2 bad relationships, and it's one of those...
And Ethan Hawke. The growth as a father. Oh, my God.
In the beginning, he's like this, the cool dad that's really...
Driving the cool car.
Right, exactly. But he really doesn't know how to be a father. Then suddenly, like, somewhere in the midpoint, like... He's now married and has a family.
A minivan.
Exactly. And it's just an amazing piece of work. And the fact that, Linklater can be dedicated to it year after year. The rest of the cast can be so dedicated.
12-year performance,
right,
more or less.
Exactly.
You have to return to every year.
It's amazing. And another film critic said, which I totally agree with, if Linklater wanted to continue this for another 12 years and make Manhood, I would watch it. I would watch it.
Tune in for the sequel, Adolescence.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. It's, you mentioned that it felt like a documentary. I think this thing has only been tried in documentary before, like that longitudinal study thing. It was the Up series, 28 Up, 56 Up, or whatever. They documented a family and returned back in documentary. But it's never been done, and this is why it's a movie for all time, with a narrative screenplay.
Right.
So literally you're writing scenes and acting them out in, you write a couple and shoot a couple scenes in 2002, then you wait a year and you do a couple more in 2003, and then you wait more and do 2004, and then 2000, on and on for 12 years.
Right.
Let's forget the insane discipline it takes to do that and risk taking, because what if someone in your cast, God forbid, dies and you can't finish the movie?
Exactly.
Or they grow into bad actors. You don't know how it's going to turn out.
Right.
But let's even table that for a second. It's just a great, sweet coming of age story as well. I just connected with it. It felt like my own childhood or yours too.
Totally.
And you as a dad, I'm sure you get even more out of it raising your own kids.
Yeah.
To me, not only do you get to watch them grow before our very eyes, but it also serves as a time capsule of those 12 years with the music. It starts with Coldplay and ends with whatever the music is at the end. Or the technology. They're playing Game Boys and then they're playing Wii's.
Right.
Or no gadgets at the dinner table, guys. And then at the end he's talking about how Facebook is turning us into zombies, and it charts that. And to me, one of the more powerful things is even like what's on the news coverage at the time. Like it opens where they're at the bowling alley and the Iraq War is on TV, and then you're sitting there watching the movie and you're like, oh my God, we're still there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it took this time capsule of this time period and will be there captured on film.
Right.
For as long as people are watching movies. You can go can you imagine what if there was a Linklater from in a different era who did this, had this idea from 1960 something to the 70s. It's a precious thing that we need to hold up as a great movie, to have this time capsule. Right. And we have it for more. It was a little bit past our time, we were a little older. It wasn't exactly our childhood that year.
Right.
But close enough to when we were growing up to see the change at such a monumental time is amazing.
Yeah, and like you said, there was I felt like, Boyhood, it totally, there was different parts that, it rang true. I was like, oh yeah, I remember doing that as a boy. I remember, whatever
playing the
was going on
Xbox or whatever,
Yeah, and it just, it felt like that's exactly how your childhood is. But more importantly, it didn't overemphasize. It didn't sensationalize.
Right.
He graduates from high school. He just graduated from high school. It wasn't like this
There's
big
no,
to do.
it avoids the temptation to have things happen. There's no like plot twist, and there's moments that you almost. I was sitting there watching it, and you're like, we've been so conditioned to expect something to happen here. When they're chopping the boards in the basement, drinking beers, and there's that blade stuck in the wall behind him, you're like, oh my God, he's gonna fly it back into it.
Right.
But he doesn't. Or when he looks at his phone in the car, you're like, oh no, he's gonna crash. No, it's him just checking his phone. It resists that temptation to make it, fictionalize it, to dramatize it.
Right.
It's slices of life.
Exactly. And that's why, man, as a filmmaker, that feat, but then the fact that the story is just so well done, it had to be number one. Otherwise, like I said, Selma would have been my number one. But this is just, hands down, you gotta get this on DVD right after you watch it in the theater.
Yeah, and I was wondering how it would hold up on second viewing, but I did just see it for a second because it came out a while ago. It came out like earlier in like summer, I think, or spring.
Yeah,
and you're blown away by the whole gimmick of it, how they shot it with the incremental thing. But I was like, I wonder how it's going to be the second time. So I went and saw it again on the big screen, and it really. Yeah, it holds up.
Yeah.
It totally, I was just as transfixed and almost in tears when he's driving away from his mom and she's like, I just thought there would be more.
Yeah.
I was in tears again. I was like, this movie totally works no matter how many times you see it.
Right. Awesome. All right. So, Jason, we're at the end. Thanks for sitting with me through these top 10.
No problem.
Some honorable mentions I had. Top 5. Minus a couple scenes, and granted, Chris Rock, his comedy is raw, so, he had to have some raw scenes in there. But I just love that as a rom-com, and I thought it was unique, the end with the shoe and all that kind of stuff. 2 Days, One Night, and Still Alice, which I'm sure Julianne Moore's performance will be brought up as well. Did you have any?
She would probably win for that one.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned some of them at the top. I mean, Locke, after we talked about it, I was like, man, that should have been in there.
Right.
Locke was great. Foxcatcher, I liked American Sniper, Force Majeure. I really like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I can't say it enough. I thought they killed it in terms, usually blockbuster sequels stink, and that one had a lot of depth to it.
Yeah, I think at that time, everybody was comparing it to Star Wars.
Right.
How,
exactly.
Okay.
What else? Snowpiercer, the one I love.
Yeah.
I even liked the X-Men movie. That was a good blockbuster, too.
Yeah.
There was a lot of really good films this year, I thought.
All right, man. Well, we got to get out of here. Unfortunately, you got to come back on the show so we can geek out some more. Please let the people know how they can reach you or read your stuff.
Well, yeah, go on WTOP.com and click the entertainment page. I will have a different cover story on there every day, or listen to WTOP every morning. It's 103.5 FM on your way to work. Stuck in the car while you're getting traffic and weather on the 8, stick around a little bit and hear some entertainment pieces.
Awesome.
On the theater and everything else. It's really great. And at JFrayWTOP is the Twitter handle.
Nice. Yeah, and I have to say, it's been really cool actually hearing you more. Before, it was I had to wait till Friday, try to hear, catch you on the right hour. But now, I'm hearing you more. I'm just like, oh, man, my boy, he's growing up.
Taught him everything I know.
Manhood.
Yeah.
All right. Jason,
thanks so much.
for coming on.
Appreciate it.
That's all for this episode. I'd like to thank my friend, Jason Fraley, for coming on and talking about the top 10 films of 2014. Please make sure that you check out the website, picturelockshow.com, for movie news and reviews. And if you live in the DMV area, to get free screenings to movies that are in this area. Until next time, I hope you stay locked on film.